Ashe, and welcome to another special episode of our Mandatory Mental Liberation Message series, written and produced by our esteemed elder Baba Jelani Bomani Dembe, the brilliant founder of Majestic Mind Matters University. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin, for this new episode. The necessity of the Mandatory Mental Liberation series at Majestic Mind Matters University lies in our focus on serving our melanin-rich culture nation. By addressing the importance of knowledge of self to produce greater self-awareness and advocating for our mental liberation, especially for our precious melanin-rich culture children, our messages aim to combat the enduring effects of generational mental enslavement stemming from the historical trauma of the chattel enslavement of the ancestors. Our initiative seeks to empower us to break free from these harmful and unfavorable legacies and cultivate a deep-rooted sense of self-identity and unwavering resilience. Each moment you spend with us is a gift, a chance to grow, to learn, to be inspired. So stay with us till the end, where the real magic happens. Now, let's get started with this very special melanin-rich culture message titled, Reclaiming Our Melanin Rich Heritage, a Call for Mental Liberation by Shunning Religions. As members of a melanin-rich culture, we find ourselves at a critical juncture, one that demands a collective awakening to reclaim our heritage and historical identity. We must confront the undeniable reality that Christianity, Islam, and Judaism were often forces imposed upon our ancestors during their darkest hours. These religions were wielded as tools of subjugation by those who sought to erase our ancestral knowledge and cultural roots, creating an artificial separation from our true selves. Understanding this history is vital as we seek to break the chains of mental enslavement that continue to impact us today. The repercussions of colonialism are not merely historical, they persist in shaping our present realities. We feel the effects of this forced indoctrination throughout society, particularly through systemic oppression, social injustice, and racism, which manifest in numerous aspects of our daily lives. For instance, cultural creators like Jordan Peele and Little Marvin use their platforms to address these themes within contemporary narratives. In films like Get Out and The Terror, they reveal the psychological strain placed on our communities through symbolism that reflects our collective trauma. These artists remind us that the scars of systemic injustice are not confined to the past, they are lived experiences that echo through generations. Moreover, as melanin-rich individuals, embracing our unique heritage and honoring our ancestors is paramount for the mental liberation of our precious children. Our women have borne the weight of generations of struggle, and we must elevate their dignity and resilience. We must stand united in recognizing the challenges they have faced within oppressive societal frameworks often designed to marginalize and quiet our voices. In this way, we foster a new generation that understands the importance of community, respect, and love, values that have always been the backbone of our civilization. Additionally, we recognize the significance of fortifying our bonds with one another in the face of ongoing societal pressures. As melanin-rich culture men, we have a duty to protect and uplift our women, children, elderly, and disabled community members. Remember, our civilization's birthright extends from our ancestral land, Alkebulan, the cradle of civilization. It is our responsibility to reclaim this essential identity by affirming our original spirituality and honoring the spirits of those lost to history, the names unknown, the stories untold. The devastation wrought by chattel slavery has left deep psychological scars, and we must memorialize those who suffered violence and oppression. The frightening realities of mass incarceration serve as a modern equivalent of this systemic bondage, crafting laws that disproportionately target marginalized individuals. We must confront this legacy and the ramifications it holds for our communities. Concepts such as Stockholm Syndrome illustrate the psychological nuances of survival in oppressive environments, complicating our responses to liberation and self-identification. Furthermore, we understand that terms like Black, Brown, people of color, or African have been used by oppressors to fragment our identity. The language of colonialism seeks to categorize and divide us, perpetuating social discrimination. Racism today is often more covert, hiding behind the veneer of inclusion while systemic oppression remains unchanged. We feel this deeply. Our melanin-rich communities have begun to reject empty symbolisms in exchange for our votes. Instead, we demand tangible change that addresses our socioeconomic disparities, transformative policies that uplift rather than merely placate. We stand united against the illusion of inclusion manufactured by systems that do not cater to our needs. The legacy of meritorious manumission still looms over us, offering false freedom while masking exploitation. The Kerner Commission reminds us that issues of housing, education, and wealth disparity were not incidental. They were deliberately designed to uphold institutional racism. Holistic healthcare emerges as an essential need for melanin-rich people navigating this oppressive landscape. Our unique heritage calls for an understanding that goes beyond mere treatment. It encompasses an acknowledgement of the effects of our history on our physical and mental well-being. Thus, we call upon each other to stay woke, celebrating our melanin-rich culture as we combat the devastations wrought from our stolen identities. By reclaiming our history, honoring our ancestors, and embracing our culture, we begin the essential work of mental liberation. It is through this collective effort that we pave a pathway towards healing, empowerment, and enduring legacy for our future generations. Together, we shall rise and reclaim our rightful place in the story of humanity. In the face of systemic oppression and cultural erasure, we find ourselves at a pivotal crossroads, challenged by the persistent shadows of societal racism and the deep-rooted effects of historical injustices. It is imperative that we actively reclaim and celebrate our melanin-rich cultural heritage, nurturing a robust sense of identity among our youth. This reclamation is not only an act of cultural pride, but also a means of achieving an essential mental liberation that will fortify our community and promote the flourishing of future generations. To understand the adverse effects of systemic oppression, we must first recognize the insidious ways in which it permeates our lives. Many among us have experienced firsthand the psychological toll wrought by centuries of chattel slavery, colonialism, and ongoing discrimination. This trauma is compounded by the modern welfare system, a framework that, rather than uplifting us, has often perpetuated cycles of dependency and disempowerment. By shunning the oppressive paradigms around us, we can better foster a nurturing environment that allows our youth to thrive, unburdened by the psychological chains of a society that seeks to marginalize their existence. In reclaiming our melanin-rich cultural heritage, we must turn our focus to honoring the indomitable spirit of our ancestors. Al-Kebulan, our indigenous name for Africa, represents the cradle of civilization, the birthplace of knowledge, arts, and philosophy. It is our duty to impart this rich history to our children, instilling within them a profound sense of pride and belonging. By recognizing and celebrating our cultural contributions, we resist the narratives imposed upon us by the oppressors, and in doing so, we begin to restore our rightful place in history. Popular culture offers us tools to understand and address these contemporary issues. Filmmakers like Jordan Peele and Little Marvin have crafted narratives that illuminate the psychological effects of social injustice, racism, and oppression. Their works often cast a spotlight on the haunting consequences of systemic oppression, using horror as a metaphorical vehicle to explore deeply rooted fears and traumas. For instance, Peele's Get Out serves as a grim reflection of modern racism, revealing how insidious practices are masked beneath a facade of societal acceptance. Similarly, Little Marvin's recent work encapsulates the lingering horrors of our historical experience, urging us to confront our past with courage and resilience. Through these narratives, we are called to recognize that our stories matter, not just as isolated experiences, but as a collective struggle that shapes our identity. In our pursuit of reclaiming our heritage, we must advocate for marrying within our own race. This commitment furthers the solidarity among melanin-rich culture individuals, fostering families that honor our shared struggles and elevate our identity. We celebrate our women, the mothers, sisters, daughters, who have borne the weight of history and continue to stand resilient in the face of adversity. It is vital that we uplift their voices, empowering them to lead our communities and nurture the next generation. We also honor the men who have consistently stood shoulder to shoulder with our women, protecting our families and advocating for our rights. In confronting the forces that have sought to undermine us, we must adopt a perspective that rejects the need for validation from our oppressors. Our self-worth is not contingent on external approval or societal standards. It lies inherently within our rich heritage and the strength of our community. As we reclaim knowledge of self, we strengthen our collective identity, fostering a deep connection to our roots. Integral to our mental liberation is embracing our original spirituality, which has been overshadowed by the doctrines imposed upon us. Honoring our ancestors and recognizing their sacrifices is essential in reclaiming our narrative. We must remember the devastating impact of chattel enslavement and its ramifications that have persisted through generations. Supporting our political prisoners, those who have fought tirelessly for our liberation, helps us embody the principles of justice and solidarity. Their sacrifices serve as reminders of the lengths to which we must go to ensure our freedom. By uniting in our efforts to reclaim our melanin-rich cultural heritage, we can foster a sense of identity and strength that our youth so richly deserve. We hold the power to shape our narrative and redefine our place in history. As we honor our ancestors and strive to uplift one another, we pave the way for a future that embraces our true selves, standing firmly against the tides of systemic oppression. It is time for us to seek mental liberation, to reclaim our heritage, and to cultivate a thriving future for our precious children. This fight is not merely a call, it is our imperative. Our next topic in this special Majestic Mind Matters University Mandatory Mental Liberation Message series is titled, Exploring the Psychological Impacts of Historical Injustice in Modern Media Representations. In our collective journey toward understanding the myriad impacts of racism, we find ourselves deeply intertwined with the legacies of our ancestors. The modern media representations crafted by visionary creators such as Jordan Peele and Little Marvin serve as essential vessels through which the psychological trauma stemming from historical injustices is examined, reflected, and ultimately confronted. As individuals hailing from a melanin-rich heritage, we are particularly attuned to the stories these artists tell, as they illuminate our shared experiences and compel us to confront the racism that persists in various forms today. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, who suffered greatly and yet demonstrated remarkable resilience. The psychological impacts of past injustices, ranging from slavery to segregation, continue to influence our communities. Peele and Marvin highlight these dynamics, placing our historical traumas within contemporary contexts. For instance, Peele's films often explore themes of identity, belonging, and the subconscious fears that emerge from systemic oppression. His work urges us to stay woke to the ongoing ramifications of our history, reminding us that our struggles are neither isolated nor outdated. They are integral to our current reality. In reclaiming our melanin-rich cultural heritage, we recognize the essential need for mental liberation for our precious children. This reclamation is not merely a nostalgic endeavor, it is an urgent call to arm the next generation with the knowledge of their roots, enabling them to navigate a world that often seeks to marginalize their existence. We understand that cultural heritage is a vital component of identity, and in our joint efforts to unify globally, we must engage in this reclamation with vigor and determination. Memorializing our ancestors is a crucial task we must undertake to honor those whose names remain unknown. Countless lives were lost to injustices that are now conspicuously overlooked in historical narratives. We are the descendants of those who fell victim to secret societies and violent organizations aimed at dismantling our communities. To ignore their sacrifices is to continue the cycle of erasure that has plagued our people. The challenges we face, from the ongoing crisis of mass incarceration that serves as a contemporary replacement for chattel enslavement, to the haunting presence of Stockholm Syndrome, a psychological condition whereby victims bond with their captors, demand that we remember and uplift the spirits of those who fought and suffered before us. Drapetomania, an obsolete term historically used to describe the desire of enslaved people to flee captivity, serves as a stark reminder of the dehumanizing ideologies that have been employed to rationalize violence against us. This concept epitomizes the audacity with which our oppressors have dictated the nature of our humanity. As victims of historical injustices, we must understand that the words often used to categorize us, Black people, brown people, people of color, African, or Africa, have been weaponized by the colonizer system to further social division and discriminate against us. These labels obscure the rich complexities of our identities and fragment our sense of community. The contemporary manifestations of racism are increasingly covert, often masked by a veneer of progressivism and false inclusivity. This insidious form of racism continues to affect us globally as we encounter subtle biases in policy, employment, education, and media representation. We find ourselves navigating spaces that are structured to keep us on the periphery, the lingering impact of the ethnic and cultural dislocation creating a collective sense of disorientation. Through the lens of modern media, we begin to understand these challenges as we are represented in ways that resonate with our experiences. By engaging with the works of Peele and Marvin, we affirm our commitment to resisting the psychological and structural legacies of our past. We are uniting not just to remember, but to reshape narratives and demand a recognition of our rights and humanity. As we confront these complex issues, it becomes clear that the fight for liberation, both mental and social, requires us to embrace our history, uplift our community, and hold space for a future free from the chains of racism and oppression. The reclamation of our melanin-rich cultural heritage serves as a foundation upon which we can build a more just and equitable world. Together, in solidarity, we can ensure that the lessons of our ancestors resonate throughout generations, fostering resilience, pride, and a unified front against the challenges that remain. The conclusion topic in this special Majestic Mind Matters University Mandatory Mental Liberation Message series is titled, Staying Woke, Empowering Melanin-Rich Communities Through Historical Awareness and Cultural Reclamation. In our collective journey as individuals of melanin-rich heritage, it is imperative that we educate ourselves and our children about the historical and ongoing repercussions of chattel enslavement and systemic oppression. Together, we can forge a path toward empowerment and unity that transcends boundaries and uplifts our global community. This is not merely a call to remember. It is a clarion call to reclaim our identity, heritage, and cultural legacy to ensure the mental liberation of our precious children. First and foremost, we must confront the stark realities of systemic oppression that continue to adversely affect us today. The legacies of chattel slavery have ingrained societal structures that perpetuate inequality and disenfranchisement. These structures manifest as economic disparities, educational inequities, and cultural erasure. For instance, the wealth gap between our communities and others remains a stark reminder of the historical exploitation and disinvestment we have faced. This economic inequality is not just a number. It has tangible effects on our access to quality education, healthcare, and opportunities for advancement. We must recognize that the struggle for equity is ongoing, and we have the agency to change this narrative. One vital aspect of our education must involve engaging with our melanin-rich cultural heritage. By reconnecting with our past and honoring our ancestors, we fortify our sense of identity. This reclamation is essential for the mental liberation of our children. When they see their history as one of resilience, innovation, and strength, they are better equipped to challenge the status quo. Our heritage tells a story of civilization, creativity, and contribution that must be passed down confidently. We cannot allow the historical narrative to be limited to oppression alone. Instead, it should illuminate the rich tapestry of our contributions to global civilization. Moreover, we are resolute in our demand for tangible outcomes rather than empty symbolism in exchange for our valuable votes. Our electoral engagement should result in real policy changes that uplift our communities rather than mere platitudes. For example, initiatives like reparations for descendants of enslaved people are gaining traction, calling for monetary compensation and investment in education, healthcare, and community development. We must advocate for policies that create sustainable change rather than accept token gestures that fail to address the depth of our needs. Crucially, we must unite against the illusion of inclusion, as it often obscures the systemic realities that govern us. While diversity and inclusion initiatives may seem positive, they frequently serve as a distraction from the need for structural change. We must remember that we do not write the rules that govern us. Therefore, we are compelled to dismantle the systems of oppression that continue to marginalize us. This requires a collective effort not only to challenge policies that disadvantage our communities, but also to reshape narratives that misrepresent our experiences. The concept of meritorious manumission, wherein enslaved individuals could earn their freedom through perceived merit, still resonates today in how society values individuals based on their conformity to oppressive standards. The mechanisms of systemic oppression employ this concept by suggesting that only those who assimilate or succeed within established systems deserve dignity and opportunity. We recognize that everyone in our community is worthy of liberation, irrespective of their adherence to mainstream expectations. The Kerner Commission, established to investigate the causes of race riots in the 1960s, concluded that America was moving toward two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. This report highlighted persistent issues such as poverty, lack of education, and inadequate housing within our communities. Although time has passed since this inquiry, its findings remain relevant. We see that the systemic issues identified continue to plague our communities, necessitating our collective action and vigilance. Furthermore, holistic healthcare is essential for melanin-rich individuals as we seek to address the multifaceted impacts of systemic oppression on our physical and mental well-being. Disproportionate access to healthcare, coupled with the cumulative trauma of historical injustices, necessitates a healthcare approach that recognizes these realities and advocates for comprehensive care. Our health is our wealth, and investing in our holistic well-being is an act of resistance against systemic inequities. To fulfill our commitment to empowering melanin-rich communities, it is paramount that we educate ourselves and our children about the deeply ingrained structures of systemic oppression. Let us reclaim our cultural heritage and work collectively toward tangible change. We must stay woke, remaining vigilant and aware of the societal injustices that continue to tamper with our progress. Through this unwavering commitment to understanding and action, we can foster unity that transcends boundaries and uplifts our shared humanity. Together, we will rise, reclaim, and redefine our destinies. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin. We trust that this very special message has expanded your understanding through the insights shared by our highly esteemed producer, Elder Baba Jelani Bomani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University, in our Mandatory Mental Liberation Series special message. Remember this, it is essential to honor the ancestors. We have a unique connection to the ancestors. They endured many unwarranted struggles, preserved our melanin-rich culture, and passed down invaluable wisdom through many generations. By honoring the ancestors, we pay honorable tribute to our roots and draw great strength and much-needed inspiration from the unwavering resilience and royal legacy that has paved the way for our present and future generations. Ancestral reverence is a powerful way for us to continually uphold our own melanin-rich identity, heritage, and cultural legacy. Here is an ancient Alkebulan proverb to keep in mind. If you think you are too small to make a difference, you have not spent the night with a mosquito. Remember this as well, whenever you are in the presence of anyone, saying, "They don't see color," it actually means, "They don't see you." We acknowledge and honor the indigenous name of our glorious continent as Alkebulan. This name means Mother of Mankind in various Alkebulan languages such as Akuyu, Swahili, and Kemet, referring to ancient Egypt, and rejecting the terms Africa or African. As royal members of our melanin-rich culture nation, we must strive for knowledge of self for greater personal awareness. Always treat yourself kindly and seek to live a totally awesome and gloriously fulfilling melanin-rich culture life. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. So, like, subscribe to stay updated, and share this very special melanin-rich culture link with everyone that you care about and that really cares about you and all of yours as well. And thank you for listening to this enchanting special message. Stay woke. Ashe.